is this?
Everybody poops sometimes.
Give us the smolder.
Wake up, sweetness.
Your first time should be more than special.
I'm in, Savannah said. Good Lord, Gemma.
When a man and a woman, in this case, really, really love each other, what happens is they fuck.
Ooh, hello?
Oh, dang it, I lost my fish. This next word almost sounds like Quidditch. Quidditch milade Diana Agosiagath an Fiedian.
As much as I love fucking you, sweetness, we stared into each other's eyes whilst I moaned in ecstasy.
Having consumed half of the bourbon, I keep saying bourbon. You know, every time I mess up on a word, Stunt Mama just shows up.
She had her seductive smile on her lips.
I said we couldn't have sex. I didn't say anything about everything else.
Ew, happy to help, biatch. You are the spark of light in the vastness of my night. His note, like a finality to a beautiful, breathtaking song. Hi. How's it going? Thank you for the resubscribe, both of you. I haven't even gotten to the puzzle yet. Come on, hold on.
My achy, breaky heart, I just don't think you understand.
Hi, Stunt Mama's mama and Stunt Papa. Long time no talk. Newbie. Hi. Welcome back. Some decisions have been made as of late. And, essentially, middle of March, I am cutting off my affiliate status with Twitch. And you're probably like, what does that mean? Well, what that means is there'll be no more ads to deal with, but also no way for anyone to subscribe. So it's like I'm starting over just without actually having to start over, if that makes sense. I am choosing to disconnect my affiliation with Twitch on the financial aspect. Part of the reasoning for doing this is because A, I hate ads. I hate ads. And I hate that when I'm reading a story, it forces you guys, if you don't want to be interrupted, to subscribe. Now, I know that there's financial support in that, and I obviously am going to be grateful for it. Absolutely. Don't deny that at all. I am eternally grateful for that. But what I hate is that you have to spend $5 to support me by doing so. Like, that's the minimum. So Twitch gets $2.50 and I get $2.50. Yeah, I'm rounding up, obviously. I would rather, hi Kay. I would rather if anyone felt so inclined to support financially, which is never required, and I'm not going to ask you to do it ever. Do I feel gratitude when you do? Absolutely. But I'm never going to say you need to subscribe. That's not why we're here. That's not what this channel is about. But if you did feel that way, you can just do it directly in PayPal, where none of it goes to Twitch and you don't have to spend as much. Okay? So this means no one will deal with ads ever. And yes, we'll lose a few emotes, but you'll still be able to use other emotes that you have access to. Emotes are still available on the channel, just not my emotes. Okay? Otherwise, everything else really kind of stays the same, as far as I'm aware. Like the channel point stuff goes away, but I can find other ways of providing sounds and whatnot. I can just do a whole bunch of commands. You know, if you want me to drink something, I can make a command for that. If you want me to do push-ups, I can do a command for that. You know, I can even still base it off of, you know, generosity through PayPal. It doesn't really matter. The point is, I'm sick or tired of Twitch getting half, and I'm sick or tired of you guys having to pay so much just to get that ad-free experience. So I'm cutting the cord. Middle of March, whatever that Thursday is that I would be streaming. When you come into stream that day, as long as I've figured out all the correct buttons to push, no more. Now, here's the tricky part for you, newbie. You just did 3 months in advance, which I totally adore you for. You didn't have to do that, but you did it, and I'm thrilled that you did. I don't know what's going to happen with that finances that you just spent, because I'll be chopping it off 2 months early, so to speak. I'm assuming you're going to get a credit, but I don't know how that works. So what I would recommend you do is get a refund, like request it back. And if you really want to subscribe for 1 month, you certainly can. I'm not going to stop you. But perhaps subscribing for 3, because I don't know how it's going to work, may not be a good idea. So that's my info on that. So it is going to happen. I've made the decision and I'm sticking to it. It's not just a stick it to Twitch kind of thing. That's not my intent. It's more so I want to make this as freely open and accepting of everybody as I humanly possibly can. And financials are often a burden, and I want to remove that burden. So I'm taking away the affiliation. So there you go. That's my thing. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. In other news, I need to re-up the link, I'm sure, but starting Thursday, this coming Thursday, in Stunt Mama's Discord, we have an event that's going to happen every Thursday night where I will be reading, if I can grab the book without knocking anything over, I will be reading this book, Fourth Wing, in Discord. I can't read it on Twitch because I will get in a lot of trouble. It's the fancy one too. It's got the blackened edges. Yes. So that's going to be pretty cool. So Thursday next week after stream, so probably right around 9 o'clock Central, we're going to spend a little bit of time in Discord, starting Fourth Wing, and then every week thereafter. So, hi Mitchell, good to see you. A noble decision. I appreciate that, sir. It wasn't an easy decision because I know there's a lot of give and take when it comes to having affiliate status and not. But I feel like it's the right decision for me. So hopefully it works out. Hopefully it does. All right. Well, a bunch of you are already in the puzzle, but this is what it looks like when you're done. A whole bunch of clocks. I hope they're silent clocks, because that would drive me absolutely freaking bonkers. So have fun with the clocks. Time is on your side. See what I did there? Time is on your... Never mind. Other than that, I hope everyone's had a fantastic weekend. Sorry, I'm multitasking. The husband is supposed to be discharged either tomorrow or Tuesday. Yeah, no worries. I've been trying to keep up on your posts, okay? So I'm glad there's some direction. Sorry it is the direction it is, but at least, or I hope things can get better from here on out. Alrighty, I'm gonna lurk before I hear any of what you're reading tonight. Have to get caught up. Yeah, no worries. Thank you. I appreciate you. We'll catch up soon. I meant between us, not just the book. You can catch up on that anytime. You can catch up on that anytime. Catch up to catch up. Alright, let me just get rid of my Discord notifications because they're annoying. Hey, look, there's that message. I am turning off the affiliate program middle March. Please don't resubscribe. Yes, I'll have coffee and you get a hot chocolate. Bingo. I like that plan. All right. It's time to read a book. I've got my my tea with me, my hot tea. Black tea, sugar, milk. I do have a little bit of water sitting by as well, but I like my hot tea. You guys know this. No new news there. New. Tonight we're starting off on chapter 17. It's complicated. That's what the chapter's called. Complicated. It's on page 130 of the printed copy. Exclamation point future will get you a link to this book and to others written by David Atkinson. No affiliation. Just because we share the same last name. He lives in that amazing country that I used to live in, okay? That's why we share such a fantastic name. I wonder how hot my tea is on my warmer. The tea is wonderful. The metal mug that it's in, super freaking hot. As it should be. All right, here we go. Thank you for letting me ramble for a few minutes. It's great to see you. Get comfortable. Get your own drink. Get a snack. Get comfortable. Do what you gotta do. We're gonna read a book. The following day, I awoke and found that the latest memories had taken center stage, and the other lives I'd lived... Starting off strong. The other lives I've lived had become mere whispers in the background. Perhaps my brain had uploaded the extraneous material to a cloud somewhere, after all. I had a telephone conversation with Hannah, which felt normal and surreal at the same time. We'd been together for nearly 2 years, yet part of me had never met her. I wasn't sure how we got on, whether she'd be a confidant of all my secrets, or if I kept a lot to myself. Because I couldn't remember completing the questionnaire, I took it as a warning that not all my history of late with her would be complete. I probably came across as guarded and vague, but she didn't say anything. Perhaps that's how I always came across. It wouldn't surprise me. We still lived in separate homes after all. After she hung up, with a promise to call later, my mind felt muddled and confused. I took out my notebook, wrote down the latest saga in my life, and read back over the older notes to remind myself of my incredible journey. Journey. That sounded like a Britain's Got Talent contestant spiel. Trip might be better. Tripping, even a better description. I didn't for 1 second disbelieve all the various accounts, even if they did all feel like they had happened to someone else. What resonated was the pain I'd caused Lucy and, consequently, myself across multiple timelines. That all felt real. Too real, and poor Lisa. I'd inflicted myself upon her 3 times at least. She must be a glutton for punishment. After breakfast, Dr. Jaeger called me into her office. Today, for the first time, she hadn't donned on her white coat, but wore a short summer dress. Entirely at odds with the freezing weather outside, but what did I know? It made her look younger and more feminine. Her dark hair had been pinned back with a clasp, and she seemed more approachable. The white coat put up barriers between her and her patients. Maybe that was the point. She smiled and beckoned me to take a seat. I have some news for you, Sam. One of the previous program participants is happy to discuss her experiences with you. The only drawback is that she didn't complete her full treatment plan, but it's the best I can do. There were a few issues with her participation. She had a strange reaction. She once again told me of the time-traveling obsessive. After a moment, the doc paused and stared at me. Have we discussed this before? It feels like déjà vu. I shook my head. Interesting. Perhaps that's what déjà vu is, or what happened when someone else's timeline crossed yours and changed things. Oh my god, wouldn't that be a trip? Jeebers. Worth thinking about later. In the meantime, I didn't want to interfere with my chances of speaking to this person. Anyway, Rebecca, whose real name is Elizabeth Auld, can only see you today as she's working for the rest of the week. So you need to get to move on. Why Rebecca? On clinical trials like this, we publish the results periodically and therefore allocate pseudonyms to all the volunteers. Okay. What did I know? She'll talk to me in person. Yes, she said it cannot be discussed on the phone. Where does she live? Dartford. The doc handed me an A4 piece of paper. Printed a small font was her address and phone number. I stood to leave when a thought occurred to me. What's my pseudonym? Bob Cratchit. Oh, okay. Being named after a literary character felt strangely appropriate. I quickly returned to my room, picked up my jacket and notebook, and headed to my car. The car I'd never driven and yet had driven every day, probably. I put the address into the sat-nav and it told me it would take about 2.5 hours. The traffic on M1 turned out to be horrendous, and nearly 3 hours after I left, I pulled into a fashionable and new-looking block of apartments, amazed I'd arrived in one piece. I'm confident I'd never even passed a driving test in the last 2 previous timelines. Killa, okay, y'all are not reading. I don't know. Do I need to put it in like big, bold letters? Is that what I need to do? Hi, Killa. Thank you for the resub. Even though this will be the last, I just want you to know. I will edit the push-up count. Thank you for your support. Middle of March, Killa, I am chopping off the affiliate status. just as a heads up. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just choosing not to be the affiliate person I am now. But I think you already knew this. But yet you subscribed anyway. Thank you, though. Seriously. It means a lot. Oh, my neck. Let's see. Where were we? Oh, right, yeah. Hasn't passed a driving test before. Excellent. I found her name on a list of buzzers at the apartment building entrance and pressed the button. A tinny voice said, "Who is it?" Sam Harris. Dr. Yeager spoke to... I didn't get to finish as the door clicked open. I entered the foyer, unsure of which flat she occupied. Not the ground floor, I assumed, as her name appeared halfway up or halfway down the list, depending on how you looked at it. I started to climb the plush carpeted stairwell, and on the first landing, a door opened, and an attractive woman wearing a green top and jeans with red hair and pale skin appeared. She reminded me a little of Lisa, whom I kept marrying for unknown reasons. She said, "Sam?" I nodded. "Have you got any ID?" "Driver's license?" I fished about in my wallet and stared at it like it was the first time I'd seen it, which it was, really. I handed it to her. She read it, nodded, and said, "Please come in. Sorry, you can't be too careful." I followed her through to a large, sunny lounge overlooking a park across the main road. "Nice view," I observed. "The reason I bought the flat," she explained. "Tea? Coffee?" "A coffee would be lovely, thanks." She disappeared through a door which I assumed led to the kitchen. I appraised the furniture. Grey leather, couch, and matching chairs, wooden flooring, and a smattering of photographs around the pale cream-painted walls. Two in particular caught my eye. The first one, set against an exotic backdrop, palm trees and a sunset, showed Elizabeth and another striking-looking girl holding hands. The second one depicted Elizabeth a few years younger, her arms around another girl, who bore more than a passing resemblance despite the dark blonde hair. Her sister, I assumed. This one she'd told the doc she'd saved. I don't think the doc had ever told me her name. She might have, but if she had, it had got lost somewhere. Elizabeth returned to the room carrying a tray and caught me staring at the picture. "Me and Charlotte," she said, smiling. "The photo that never should have happened." "Dr. Yeager mentioned that you'd left the program early because you insisted that you'd traveled through time. Can I ask, how many treatments did you have?" Elizabeth sat in the chair, took a sip of coffee, and appraised me. "You look all right." "Thank you, I think." She smiled. "Not what I meant. Things might have changed on how she picks people now, but before I attended the clinic, I'd been a complete mess." Me too. Did you go to Perry Flowers?" "Is that a florist or a holiday resort?" I laughed. "It does sound like it, doesn't it? No, it's a clinical setup in Birmingham. I went to the Derwent facility in Margate, overlooking Dreamland." "The theme park?" "I went there a few times as a kid with my mum. Very run down from memory. It closed, I think." "Yeah, Well, it's open again and seemed busy and noisy enough, that's for sure. Back to you. How many treatments have you been through? 3 so far? Have you noticed any changes? Before we talk about me, can I ask about your experiences? Elizabeth drained her mug, plonked it down onto the wooden coffee table, stared into my eyes, searching for something. I'm not sure what. Sure, she sighed. What the hell? She reached over to a bookshelf near her chair, pulled a notebook from under a pile of magazines, opened it, and quickly scanned the first few pages. She took a deep breath and began. I started with a kind of soul-searching session with a therapist called Virginia. Then the chief of the project, Dr. Jaeger, tried to explain what she had planned for me, but to be honest, at the time, I probably wasn't in the best place to take in what she had said. I nodded. Same here. I remember drifting off to sleep and waking up in my old house. She paused and looked at me. I know how crazy the next bit will sound, but I found myself back inside my body as a little girl, a few days short of my 7th birthday. I smiled encouragement. Go on. Well, it turned out to be the day we were due to head off to the lakes in Cumbria. My parents had rented this cottage on the edge of Lake Windermere. Initially, it felt like a dream, just watching events happen. But then I realized I could influence things and make changes. I will force a hydrate. Thank you. Cheers. Ooh, that's hot. But oh so good. I sneaked out and deflated one of the tires on the car. That held us there for an hour or two, but we still went. And when we got there, I tried to explain to my dad that renting a canoe could be dangerous and risky. She smiled. I remember him staring at me like I'd become possessed, you know? Here was I, this little girl, using grown-up language and pleading with him like an adult with this full understanding of risk and consequence. And I don't think even he had. I freaked him out. I watched her pause, and her face dropped. Charlie still drowned that day. My dad didn't listen and still rented that bloody canoe. Just as the ambulance arrived too late, I keeled over and woke up in the clinic, totally distraught. I convinced myself and the doctor that it had only been a bad dream. Dr. Jaeger blamed it on the earlier discussions where I'd dragged up my sister's death. I interrupted. They did that to me as well. I suppose that's how psychiatrists think. Something puzzled me. Dr. Jaeger told me that your sister hadn't drowned and had been happily living in France all along. Elizabeth smiled. Yeah, she is now. I don't understand. A few days later, they put me under again, and I fixed things properly this time. I smashed a bloody great hole into the canoe with a hammer. She giggled. My dad came out to find me wrecking the bloody thing. I think he genuinely did believe I'd come possessed. When he tried to take the hammer from me, I started snarling, screaming and threatening him. Anyway, it worked. We never did go out in a canoe, and my sister never drowned. Happy days. I told her about my earlier experiences and waking up 7 or 8 stone lighter, and nobody believed me. Then the whole saga with Lucy. I genuinely thought I'd lost my mind. I'm not surprised. Elizabeth smiled at me. You're certainly not fat now. One thing puzzles me about your sister. This epigenetic thing they do targets the faulty switch or gene and fixes it. If they did that the first time you went back, how could you return to the same time and place again? She shrugged. I'm guessing it didn't get fixed because I didn't save her the first time. I had to think about that. The answer seemed obvious, of course, but I hadn't considered it. The epigenetic regression, or whatever it's called, only works if what is wrong with the timeline slash genome is sorted. The actions I took to fix things that went wrong reset the faulty switch, allowing the doc to move on to the next one. The revelation made my head hurt. Elizabeth then posed the question I suppose I'd come to ask myself. Are we time travelers? Either that or we're both suffering from the same psychosis. Unlikely, but not impossible, I suppose. If we are travelling through time, it's not the way you read about in science fiction books or see in films, but in a fashion that's very specific to us, very personal. I wanted to hear your experiences as I'm still unsure if I'm deluded, mad, or both. Elizabeth agreed. I'm sure Dr. Yeager has no idea at all about the incredible forces she's meddling with. She had all kinds of psychological explanations for what had happened, which I half believed at the time. The key is that stuff they injected into us. All her experience is counting against her. How so? I asked, keen to hear someone else's view of the whole thing. She's too educated and grounded in her profession. She'd never believe any explanation like ours. And why should she? From her point of view and all those around her, nothing has changed. Elizabeth reached out and touched my arm. We've had an incredible chance to put right what once went wrong in our lives. I got booted off the program when I tried to explain it, plus my hair had changed colour. I dyed it blonde for some reason, but didn't remember that until later. I accused them of colouring my hair whilst asleep. I smiled. The doc mentioned that. The thing is, Elizabeth continued, my main regret in life had been fixed at that point, so leaving didn't bother me. She stared at me for a moment. Your life perhaps went a lot more wrong than mine? I nodded. Maybe. So, I'm guessing you've still got unfinished business with this girl of yours. I think so. I'm in much better shape than I used to be. I focused on her notebook. One thing puzzles me. Well, I laughed. Lots of things puzzle me, but your notes, my notes, are the only link I've got to who I used to be. I assume yours are the same. Why does everything change when we return, yet the notebook remains unaltered? Not just the notebook. What do you mean? I typed everything into my laptop. It's all still there. But it doesn't save to the cloud. If I try, it vanishes. How weird is that? She smiled, and her eyes sparkled. I know because we wrote them. they are not tarnished by whatever changes when we got back. I don't know why that is yet. I've been reading a lot of stuff, theoretical science mainly, since this all happened to me. I have a few ideas. Thank you for the lurk, Thumb Gaming. It might be because, for lack of a better word, we temporarily exist outside of the various timelines after each event. Only for a short while until all the memories are fully established in our heads. She squeezed my hand. I'm so glad you reached out to me. I'd wish I'd taken the chance to do it earlier. Dealing with this, wondering if you're the only one or if you're completely balmy isn't easy. I haven't encountered anything that explains or even partly explains what is happening to us. Maybe it's multiple universes, some quirk in quantum mechanics, or perhaps a benevolent god. Who knows? Honestly, I don't care that much. I'm just glad it happened. We were silent for a moment, pondering on everything. And I mean everything. I asked, "How is your sister now?" Elizabeth scoffed. "She's fine. She married her boring accountant boyfriend and moved to France. We don't see much of each other. We never really got along that well." "After all you did for her?" Elizabeth laughed. "Yeah, well, she doesn't know that, does she? I tried to tell her once, but she just looked at me like Dr. Jaeger did, and I never mentioned it again. Still, it's a shame. It's complicated." She stopped speaking and studied me for a moment. She indicated the photograph I noticed earlier. "That's Paula, my girlfriend. We split up recently. We'd been together for 3 years. I thought we were forever. But nothing's forever, I guess." She dropped her eyes. "My dad's always been cool with it. I think he knew early on. I'm not sure how, but neither my sister nor my mum were comfortable with my life choices, I suppose." She stared at me for a moment. "Can I share an observation?" I nodded. "From what you've told me, it feels like every time you go back, it's like you're trying to future-proof your life." And there it is, the title of the book. "Like you did," I countered. She considered that for a moment. "Not really. I had a terrible childhood. Charlotte died, and then I told my mum how I felt about myself and the world a few years later. Back then, she genuinely thought it had been an illness, a mental aberration, which could be cured. But then, by that point, she'd already lost one daughter, and I guess the guilt weighed heavier on her than me, and my dad never forgave himself. Well, you wouldn't, would you?" I shook my head, agreeing with her. Elizabeth took a moment. "At the time, I thought that perhaps her attitude towards me had been about losing a daughter, but her emotions never changed, even when I had returned and fixed that. It had nothing to do with my sister's death, and everything to do with my mother. In the first version of my life, I left home at 16 and shacked up in the hovel with a drug dealer called Mick. He abused his own body and mine. In the second version, that never happened. By going back and saving Charlotte, I changed her life by giving her a life, but by doing so, it changed mine immeasurably for the better. You need to do the best you can. It's not an exact science." If it makes you feel any better, I've married and left the same woman at least 3 times now. She gawked at me. Why? I have no idea. Whenever I wake up and relive the last timeline, poor Lisa's in there. It's like fate, Elizabeth said quietly. Bad karma, more like we're not good for each other. Weird. I rubbed my face. It's all beyond weird. I reckon I need therapy to help me deal with the therapy. Elizabeth guffawed a real belly laugh. I didn't want to pass judgment, but said, It's the 21st century. Nobody cares anymore about gender, sexuality and stuff. My family does. She sighed. It's okay. I've learned to live with it. No choice. We chatted for a while about Dr. Yeager and Elizabeth's plans. She'd applied for a new job in central London, working in the operations department of an investment bank, and joined an online dating site. As I got up to leave, she took a selfie of us. Just in case I ever doubt this meeting happened. She smiled. I knew what she meant. I wished her all the best with everything. On my way back to the clinic in my car, I felt sure I could now tick insanity off the list of possibilities. Elizabeth might be right, of course, and we were sharing a joint psychosis, perhaps a side effect of the amber concoction. But I didn't think so. I had Elizabeth's number and promised to phone her after my next session. If I shifted the timeline again, would she remember my visit? That would be an interesting exercise, but one for the future. Or maybe the past? I'd begun to lose track. Because it's difficult to keep up with. But that is the end of the chapter. Chapter 17. This tea is delicious. Hey, y'all are making really good progress with that puzzle. Hey Dee, hi there. How are you, Haiti? Doing okay? What kind of tea? It's a black tea, English breakfast, with a little bit of sugar and some milk. The only way it should be drunk. Oh man, my neck though. Oh. I don't know what I did, but good grief, it hurts. We're fine though. It's fine. What happened to your neck? I don't know. I think I probably slept on it funny, or I'm getting older. I probably just moved the wrong way. But it's tight and it hurts. Like even just moving here, like I'm barely moving my head sideways, but it starts to hurt. I don't like it. Gonna pout. Yeah, it's all right. We'll get it figured out one way or another. We're on page 142. It's true. 313 pages, 142. So we're not quite halfway, but we're pretty darn close. Pretty darn close. Oh, gosh, excuse me. Chapter 18 is called I'm Not in Love. No, I'm not. You can't make me. So let's keep going. We'll see what happens. By the way, we have some pretty cool streamers in here tonight. I don't have any mods to do shoutouts right now because, well, I don't know where they are. But I want you to know Party Hard Games, Thump Gaming, Haiti, Mama House Gaming. I'm sure she's lurking around here somewhere. All fantastic streamers. Click on names. Click on hearts. It's that simple. And while you do that, I'm going to keep reading. Back in Perry Flowers, I phoned Hannah and had a strange conversation about people and places I didn't know and yet knew very well. Oh, hold on. What's this? Oh, it's fine. Okay. All good. She said she missed me. I agreed. A part of me missed her. Both her nature and her warm body. A portion of me didn't know any of this at all and watched on from the sidelines, wondering what the hell was going on. I fell into an uneasy sleep around 11 p.m. I woke the next day feeling refreshed and updated my notes with the latest changes while I still could. So sorry. Just got tired all of a sudden. I showered, admiring the hard, fit body I had acquired, dressed and headed down for breakfast. I ignored the croissants and ate fruit and cereal. I still drank coffee. It's very unsettling knowing that until recently I had been a different person. Mainly because that other person still lurks somewhere under the surface, waiting for his chance to eat crisps and cake, become miserable and drip poison into my brain. I had my session with Janice and recalled my most recent failings. She told me I'd not be needed until 2:30, so I arranged to meet Hannah for lunch. She had a half day and wanted to see me. You caught me yawning? I'm sorry. I can't help it. It's been a long weekend. I'm gonna drink more tea, because gosh darn it. I'm not sure how I'm gonna do on Thursday when I go into Discord and keep reading for even longer. Gonna need one of those 5-hour energies that I'm not allowed to drink. How are you feeling, by the way, Stump Mama's mama? Are you, gathering your strength back okay? I hope you are. I lost my place. Okay, no, we're good. I found it. I was curious to meet her, too, to see if my thoughts and memories of her matched the reality. Improving with my walking, but my energy is low. Completely understandable. Glad to know that you're doing your exercises, though. That's good. Gotta keep those hips moving. Literally. Something is in my eye. It's bothering me. At 3 minutes past 12, I found myself sitting in the small Italian restaurant she said we loved, just off Broad Street. I'd eaten here with Hannah many times and yet never at all. We'd gone to see plenty of movies afterwards in Cineworld, including the various reboots of Jumanji. Hannah always teased me about getting the hots for Karen Gillian in her shorts. Ugh. We also went to see any new blockbuster action movies that came out. Hannah loved them. I always pretended not to enjoy them, but I always did. A kind of game we played, sipping Diet Coke and sharing popcorn. The restaurant menu seemed familiar, and a mystery at the same time. I knew what tasted good, and what I usually ate. Hey, Zarias. What's up, dude? I'm so good at losing my place. It's amazing. I ordered chicken penne arabitia. Arabitia. I think. For Hannah, and a crispy-based pepperoni pizza for myself, along with 2 Diet Cokes. She texted me telling me to order, which I'd already done. Weird. While she parked her car. 2 minutes later, she plonked herself down opposite me, leaned over, kissed me, and smiled. Prettier in the flesh than in my memory or the photos in my phone. She had an animation about her that I remembered now as she sat opposite me. Her arms waved around as she talked, and her smile and dimples widened and waned as she told me all about her boss, George, taking off her friend and colleague, Amber, for not wearing the company attire this morning. Hannah worked for an online insurer. I couldn't for the life of me remember which one. I have said before, not everything comes across intact. I did remember George being talked about as a stickler for rules. He wandered about the office with the procedures manual open, checking stuff. I had met him a few times, and he seemed okay, but I didn't have to work with him. And I can't turn a page. Eventually, Hannah wound down. Excuse me. Hannah wound down as our food arrived. She spread some pasta and asked, Spread? Good Lord. She speared some pasta and asked, How's it going then? I nodded. Okay, I feel better. She smiled. See, I told you you would. Sometimes you need to listen to someone who loves you. I smiled. Yep, you were right. I hope I can go home soon. I know I could walk out anytime I want, but I suspect a few more treatments will ensure I don't relapse. Treatments? She asked. I didn't want to mention being injected with experimental shit, as Angus would say. Yeah, you know, therapy sessions and stuff. She put her fork down. They're not doing weird stuff to you like electric shock therapy, are they? I scoffed. Of course not. That's not even legal anymore. Is it? I don't know. Is it? I don't know. We both laughed, and Hannah picked up her fork and ate. I miss you, she said from under her long eyelashes. I miss you too, I replied, and most of me did. A chunk of me didn't know what I might be missing, and a small piece of me didn't even know who the hell she was. I munched on pizza and wondered what Hannah saw in me. 32, nearly 8 years younger than me and lovely. I knew her relationship history, the miscarriage she suffered with her ex-boyfriend Paul, the messy breakup where he emptied their bank account and remortgaged her flat without her knowledge. He used the money to pay off some gambling debts that Hannah knew nothing about. Then he'd posted some videos online of them having sex. It took her nearly 6 months to get them taken down. They still occasionally popped up on obscure porn sites, so she told me. I'd never gone looking for them. I told her about Lucy, but I don't think I ever explained the pain and parting, or the pain that parting had caused me. Another blip on the genome, I suppose. We all have them. I just seem to have more than most. I reckoned a bit of me, well, quite a lot of me, still viewed myself as the fat, miserable loser who messed up everything. I probably appeared attractive, fit, and successful to Hannah, though she had spotted some hint of the darkness inside me. That's when she'd encouraged me to apply for Dr. Yeager's program. I didn't know what might change if I took another trip into the Twilight Zone. I might still be with Hannah, or perhaps I wouldn't. My life now felt like it had got into some decent shape. In fact, very decent shape. Would another course or two of the treatment make things worse or even better? I didn't know. Should I stick or twist? It would be so easy to go home now with Hannah, accept the status quo, which was undoubtedly 1,000,000 times better than where I'd been a week ago, and count my blessings. I could rip up the notebook, scatter the paper into the wind, and accept what I had, by all accounts, a pretty good life. A part of me, however, would always wonder what if. Could I live with that? Mad Locust. Good evening. Or for you, good morning. Again, I don't know. That was my problem. My relationship with Lucy had been wrecked, but so what? Doesn't everyone have relationship regrets? Why should I be any different? Why couldn't I move on and accept the love of a wonderful woman and live my life from there? The answer seemed very clear. I didn't love Hannah. As much as I knew I liked her, it wouldn't be fair to her as things stood. She'd suffered enough with her twat of an ex-boyfriend for me to do a Lisa on her. That wouldn't be fair to her or me in the long run. The real problem, I reckoned, was that whilst a large part of me had parted with Lucy many years ago, a piece of me had only suffered that fate a day or so ago, and had not had time to process and heal. I felt conflicted, unsure and off balance mentally with everything. If I waited and let the other memories completely fade and perhaps destroy my notebook, I'd eventually settle into the version of me and might grow to love Hannah as she deserved to be loved. But what if I didn't? I knew I'd been lucky to land like this. Hannah was gorgeous, intelligent, and funny, and yet I shook my head. Enough of all the self-indulgent introspection. I fully engaged with Hannah and focused on her for the remainder of lunch. We talked about her work, and thankfully she mentioned the name of her employer, Parador Insurance, and as soon as she said it, the missing bits plink-plonked into my brain. Memories of some Hannah work nights out that I'd been invited to also dropped in. Jen, who shared a pod with Hannah, sang in a local band. We'd been to see them a few times. Jen liked to dress minimally out of work, and Hannah teased me about staring at her thighs, trying to glimpse her knickers in the micro dress she wore on stage. A task made even more intriguing when Hannah told me Jen generally didn't wear any. After lunch, we walked in the park across the road. The afternoon, warm for late October, allowed us to saunter with our jackets undone, kicking through the piles of fallen leaves like kids. During moments like this, I saw Hannah as she was, viewing the world with childlike innocence despite the dark time she'd endured. As well as her scummy ex-boyfriend's antics, her father had died just before Christmas last year following a stroke. Sudden and shocking, with no time to say goodbye. It deeply affected her for a while, which is why we'd not moved in together. We talked about it often, but after her dad passed, it hadn't been mentioned for a while until now. I've been looking at houses on the internet. Have you now? I said, smiling. Just curious. We'd have to sell our places first, but, you know, it's maybe time we moved on. I nodded. The part of me that had been with Hannah for ages knew this had been coming. The other bits of me just watched. Let me finish this therapy. Then I'll look with you, okay? Really? She said, grinning. I thought I'd have to use some of my charms to persuade you. I pretended to be disappointed. Aw, silly me. Okay, then I'm not moving in with you. Ever. She giggled. Too late now, Mr. Harris. Damn. Interestingly, her gentle demand helped me make my decision. It made me feel uneasy. Like I'd be giving up and saying goodbye to Lucy forever. I knew I had lost Lucy in this life, but perhaps I still had a chance in another life. Decision made. I'd finish the therapy with Dr. Yeager and see where it took me. I don't know how to say this last part. Q Sira Sira. I don't know what that means. But I do know that's the end of the chapter. That was interesting at that very end there. I thought, based off of the whole, like, we'll move in together and we'll find a house, that maybe he wouldn't finish therapy, but we wouldn't have a whole half of a book to go if he didn't, so, or at least I don't think we would. K Sura Sura? Yeah, maybe. Maybe it's the English British spelling of it that's messing me up. What does that mean, though? I don't know if I've really heard that before, to be perfectly honest with you. Surah. Oh, what will be, will be. Ah. I see. A song by Doris Day. I got nothing, but I understand the line, I guess, if you want to call it that. Whatever will be, will be. Very good. Okay. Well. So it's interesting. He had this moment where he could have just said, you know what? I'm done. I can be happy here. Or at least I think I can. I could just walk away. And more than likely live a very happy, fulfilling rest of his life. But as he said, there'll always be that what if nagging at him in the back of his mind. and therefore he concluded he could never truly be happy, or at least content. I think that would be a better description at this point. He could never be content not knowing. It's interesting though, because we don't actually have this ability to go back in time and change events from the past. So we have to find contentment with what we know. We can't change the past, so we have to be content with what is and hope that tomorrow is just as good or better than today. But Sam has this amazing opportunity to go back in time and kind of reset the clock a little bit. But the problem is he doesn't know how that's going to affect his future. He could make a change and end up being worse than when he started. Or he could be living his wildest dream, whatever that is. Who knows? That's why messing with your past is dangerous, because I feel like it could become addictive. Can you imagine being able to go back in time and just tweak something just because? What a dangerous thought. Enticing. Exciting. But dangerous. Now, if I could go pick a few numbers on the lottery ticket and invest some of my funds into a few particular stocks, yeah, maybe I would. Maybe I would. But besides that, you know, messing with the rest, I don't know. I don't know. Oh. Man, y'all are like 95% done with this puzzle. Slow down. Alright, chapter 19 is called Misunderstanding, and it starts on page 149 of the printed copy. I hope you're ready, because here we go. Later that afternoon, I lay down again on the bed in Collis Lab 4 and discussed my feelings and perceptions of the world with Dr. Yeager as we worked through Janice's notes. She briefly asked me about my meeting with Elizabeth. She still believes she traveled back in time and saved a sister. The doc narrowed her eyes and searched my face. Is that what you believe is happening to you? Of course not. I lied. I'm not sure if psychiatrists are fitted with a better version of a BS detector than ordinary folk, but she just nodded and said, We like to undertake follow-up sessions with all our patients. Elizabeth Auld is one of the few who, so far, has resisted such an approach. One of the reasons I had for asking her to meet you is that I hoped speaking with someone from the program might change her mind. I want to talk to her again. Help her, perhaps. I think you did help her, I said, smiling. She saved her sister. The doc shook her head and returned the grin. Yeah, okay. Back to the matter at hand. I drifted off to sleep as usual as a needle full of glowing amber liquid flowed into my veins. You know, does this amber liquid change the color of his pee? Just a random thought that came to mind. I'll let you all simmer on that and think about it. You're welcome. This time, I opened my eyes to complete darkness and silence. Sounds like a little TMI to me. Well, hi, Mama House Gaming. Well, that's a thought. Hey, you know what? I feel like your daughter would ask the same question, so... Sorry, back to lurking? No, you talk all you want, madam. This time, I opened my eyes to complete darkness and silence. Leave me out of this. As my eyes grew accustomed, I could make out some shapes and heard a distant car horn. In the warm bed beside me, I recognized the sensual scent of Lucy Lawrence. It could be nobody else. The question was, where and when? I carefully slipped out from under the duvet and shivered in the cold. Winter then, I assumed. I carefully picked my way across the room as I recognized the restricted space and furniture. Well done. Wall of wall clocks. How original. Good job, everybody. Way to go. You did it. GG indeed. It's quite the puzzle. A wall of wall clocks. Let's see. I carefully picked my way across the room as I recognized the restricted space and furniture of our London flat. I emptied my aching bladder in the bathroom and checked my watch. 3:45 a.m. As elated as I felt to be back with Lucy, and as much as I wanted to wake her up and make love, I knew she probably had rehearsals and a show tomorrow and wouldn't welcome the attention. I didn't know the date. Was this before or after her confession? I needed to gather some intel before I made any huge gaffes. I didn't fancy groping around trying to find Lucy's phone. Also, putting on the TV at that time in the morning was a non-starter. What else had a date on it? Of course. Sitting on the breakfast bar, which also doubled as our dining table, hot desk, coffee table, occasional sex platform, once, not to be repeated, and general dumping ground was yesterday's Evening Standard. I tried to view the date, but the light wasn't good enough, so I carried it through to the bathroom and closed the door before flipping the light on. Thursday, 12th of January. That meant today was Friday the 13th, which sounded ominous enough without working out the day's significance, which I hadn't yet. Creeping back into the main room, I spotted Lucy's mobile. A Motorola Razr in red that flipped open. Bought to allow her to get advanced notifications of auditions. She'd been so proud of it. I remembered the two of us sitting for ages waiting for a video to load on the 3G technology. How far we'd come since then. Working in the bookies, 10 minutes from home, I didn't need a mobile. I slipped back into bed and snuggled, spooning against Lucy's back. She mumbled something and I slipped my arm around her. She held my hand but didn't wake up. I smiled in the darkness. I felt like I'd returned to where I was meant to be. I awoke to an empty bed. Well, half empty. I rolled over and saw Lucy sitting at the breakfast bar reading a magazine and drinking coffee. The clock at the side of the bed read 7:15. I needed to leave the flat in less than an hour. I felt like taking a day off, but that would bring forth many questions I probably wasn't equipped to answer. "Hi," I said. "Sleeping Beauty awakens," she smiled at me. God, she looked stunning. Even just awake with no makeup and sleepy eyes. I stared at her. I couldn't help it. Whenever I spent time with her, I felt like the luckiest man alive. I compared it to the recent lunch with Hannah, and I'm sorry to say it didn't compare. The strength of feelings I had for this woman was simply incomparable. When's your first interview? What interview? What interview? She smiled. You told me last week that a recruitment agency had scheduled some interviews for you. Of course they had. That meant today, or rather, tonight was the night. Another massive blot on my genome, I suspected. Friday the 13th should have been enough of a trigger to etch into my memory. Next week, I think. I've got a note of the date somewhere. Good. You need to get a proper job. You're wasting your talents in that hovel. Only one talented person occupied this flat. The goddess sitting on a bar stool staring at pictures of shoes. I might have put her on a pedestal this morning, but my psyche felt super psyched as part of me hadn't seen her for years. I laughed at my insight. Lucy looked up from her magazine. Someone's chipper today. It's Friday. And that's good because... I knew what she meant. For her, it involved performing to a packed house. All her performances were in front of packed audiences, but Friday evening sprinkled an extra magic ingredient into Theaterland. It was the evening when most of the audience didn't have work the following day and tended to overindulge both pre, during, post-theater, making them a little more restless and ruckus. Then, of course, hot on the tail of Friday, Saturday followed with a matinee and an evening show. Lucy always came home exhausted on a Saturday night. For me, Fridays were very busy. Those who still got paid weekly usually appeared between 3 and 7 p.m. to place their weekend bets, and then on a Saturday, a steady stream of punters pressed up against the counters with betting slips and cash. Yep, Fridays for us weren't anything to celebrate. But today would be different. Today would be the day I fixed things. I hoped. I accepted the coffee she offered, banished my morning dog breath, and replaced it with coffee breath to match hers. I kissed her, passionate and desperate, hungry for her taste and the feel of her tongue. She laughed and eventually pushed me away. Stop it, you've got work. I've missed you so much. What are you on about? We just got up. Yeah, but last night and every night I miss you. You come home late and exhausted. I miss the way we were. Australia and Thailand, you mean? I nodded, but I'd been missing her for nearly 2 decades. Dreamy days. She moved to sit on the bed and beckoned me over. We kissed and lay back on the wrinkled sheets. We lay facing each other, foreheads touching like old times. Very old times for me. I love you so much, Lucy. I don't know what I'd do without you. She frowned. I could feel her forehead skin against mine as it moved. It was strangely erotic. You've been a little distant recently, she observed. Life gets in the way. It does, she confirmed. The show's due to finish its run in 4 weeks. It might go provincial, but I don't know if I'll do that. I've got another offer. You have? I said, surprised. You never mentioned it. Of course, she might have, but this version of me had no memory of it. I only found out yesterday, and we were so late last night, I just didn't have the energy to think about it. Well, what is it? She sat up and looked down at me with wide eyes. I got the lead in Jacobites. Jacobites. Whatever that is, I don't know. But she got the lead. That's exciting. Now this is where the time traveling game really sucks. Her reaction meant this must be a huge deal, a mega part. And I hadn't the faintest idea what she was on about. She'd obviously been for the audition and discussed it with me, but at that moment my brain offered nothing. Zero. Zilch. That's amazing, I said enthusiastically, but she knew me too well. You don't even remember what Jacobites is, do you? Of course I do. You went for the audition. When? I must have got that bit right. Wait, I don't know. A week or so ago? I must have got that bit right. Then she said, what's it about then? Jacobites? It's about the Jacobites. Doing what? Now I was grasping. Jacobiting about? No smile. No smile wasn't good. What part did I go for? I don't remember. How can you not remember? I went on and on about it. That's the problem. You don't listen to me anymore. I do listen. I just don't remember. That was the truth, but now she'd understand it. If you listened properly, then you'd know. You couldn't possibly forget. I wasn't so sure about that. I'd spent 2 years studying for a physics GCSE and listened very carefully, but still failed. I decided this might not be a good time to use this or that as an example. Lucy, I'm sorry, there's so much going on. You what? Need to focus on giving out betting slips, emptying the bins and picking up fag ends. Cigarettes. Such a mental strain that must put on you. The man with an English lit degree is so caught up with this demanding job that he can't remember the most important role his girlfriend has ever landed. Fiancé, I corrected. She scoffed. Yeah, for now. This was going well. Lucy, She just waved me away. Go and get ready. You'll be late for work and we still need the money. She snatched up her magazine, lay back on the bed, and picked up where she'd left off, staring at shoes. I watched her for a moment. So beautiful and talented. And I knew this morning's argument had been about much more than me forgetting the audition, or, to be accurate, not yet remembering the audition. No, this went deeper. This was her reaction to the distance she'd mentioned earlier, and about me not getting over her confession. Tonight would be the disastrous conclusion of that lack of forgiveness. I couldn't fix the argument, but I could fix the evening. As I walked to work, the Jacobian... Why is that so difficult to say? The Jacobian, I don't even know what this is, stuff dripped into my brain. Lucy had won the starring role of Flora MacDonald in the musical drama, which would be staged in the West End in May. Assuming Lucy got the part, which she had, rehearsals would begin in February. I could march back to our tiny flat and recount all this to her now. But she'd think I'd phoned someone or read Variety or something. No, the damage with Jacobites had been done. I just needed to make sure I didn't make things any worse. And that is chapter 19. Oh boy. You gotta feel for him. Like, talk about being thrust into a situation where you don't have any recollection of it, at least at first. It's like, please wait 10 minutes for the mind to reboot and then start again. But you don't have 10 minutes. You just got to get into it and go. That would be utterly confusing. No, thank you. Talk about a... Oof. That'd be crazy. Okay, nothing there. Just making sure. Oh, boy. Nuts, I tell you. Just nuts. All right. Should we do one more chapter? I think so. Chapter 20 on page 157. Drink. Cheers. As I was saying, chapter 20 is on page 157. Pretty much the halfway mark. In fact, I would say this, as far as number of pages in the story, in the book, this is the halfway mark. It's crazy. It's not the halfway mark for chapters, but it is for pages. In fact, no, we don't have a table of contents. What is the last number? Chapter 40. Oh, it is halfway. Just kidding. It's literally halfway through the book. Page-wise and chapter-wise. What are the odds of that? Those sounds are funnier when I'm high. Oh, poor Kay. I'm so sorry you have to get high right now to survive. That sucks. Unless you're just doing it for fun, then that's different. But yeah, right? How crazy is that? Halfway through the book, literally, and chapterly. That's weird. I was right? Okay, well, then I didn't want to be right, but here we are. Okay. Chapter 20. The Power of Love. Ashball. Hi. What will be, will be. I know. Ashball, there's no Fourth Wing tonight. It's Thursday. Just so you're aware. I mean, I'm sure you know that already, but just in case. Just wanted to... You remember? Okay, cool. I didn't want you showing up in Discord going, hello. Hello. All right, one more chapter before we call it a night. Chapter 20, page 157, The Power of Love. As I predicted, Friday afternoon was mega busy. I usually got a half-hour break at 4 p.m. and phoned Lucy to wish her good luck. She never needed it, but it had become a ritual between us. I didn't get away until after 5. She'd been makeup and dressing by then. My call went to voicemail. R.A. Morley, hi. Hello, lovelies. Hope we're having a splendid day. It's not too bad, thank you. I hope you are having a wonderful day. I left an apologetic message and returned to work. I rarely missed calling her. It would only add fuel to the fire of the morning's argument. I needed to get a mobile phone, even if only to send her texts at times like these. At 7 p.m. we shut the doors and I breathed a sigh of relief. As I remembered, Doug took us out for drinks, and by 9 p.m., only he and I were in the club from the group of 6 that had started out. Once more, I found myself talking to the captivating Gina. But 3 things were different this time. 1, I'd drunk much less. 2, I'd had some food. And 3, I had perspective. I kept glancing at my watch as we talked. "Am I boring you?" Gina said with a smile, but I detected irritation in her voice. "No, I'm sorry. I'm meeting my fiancée after she gets off work, and I need to get going in a minute." A pretty good day. Went through some of my older work to plan for how to continue a work in project novel, and set with Coco, Waiting for Rain. Well, wonderful. I'm glad you were able to kind of get your mind in gear by going through the old stuff. That's awesome. Good for you. Thumbs up. "Oh, I didn't know you were seeing anyone." "Sorry, I should have said." "You should." Her eyes left mine, and she scanned the club looking for what? Someone else to take home now? I was off limits. "Is she a nurse?" "Who?" Her eyes met mine again with a frown. "Your fiancé." "No. Why'd you think that?" "Because it's nearly 9:30 on a Friday night." I smiled. "Right, I see. No, she's an actress and a singer. She's playing Laurie Williams in Oklahoma in the Ellipse Theatre." Gina's eyes widened and she said, "Oh." I went to the toilet and then sneaked out the exit without saying goodbye to Gina, which was not at the top of my priority list. As I walked back towards Leicester Square, it started to rain, and by the time I took my place at the stage door amongst the crowd of well-wishers and autograph hunters, I'd got thoroughly soaked. A middle-aged man who bore more than a passing resemblance to Rupert Giles, aka Anthony Head, from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, nudged me and said, "Who were you hoping to see?" "Lucy Lawrence." That excited him. "Oh, me too. She's so talented and beautiful. And that voice. Oh." I had seen Lucy before many times by now, and watched her in this show alone at least 8 times. But I knew what he meant. I nodded. "She's terrific." "Rupert Scott," he said, introducing himself. I shook his hand, smiling. I'd been half right. The crowd began to stir and surged forward as the rain got heavier. It took me back to my memories of standing there in the freezing weather, like now, but with no hope of forgiveness or redemption. A few of the supporting cast appeared and quickly signed a few programs, autograph books, and the odd bare arm before hustling away into cabs or cars waiting to pick them up. Then she emerged. Tossing her dark hair behind her, she raised her hood. Raised the hood of her thick coat to try and protect from the rain. I hope it got soaked. I loved the smell of her wet hair, the pheromones that poured from the top of her head into the tousled mane. Lost in the moment, I watched her sign some autographs, including Rupert's. Then her eyes met mine, and she stood there staring. I stared back. My vision blurred slightly as tears formed in my eyes. Eyes across a crowd. Eyes across time. I'm not sure which had the greatest effect on me, but something shifted in my soul. She came to me. We held each other. I buried my soaking wet face in her hair and inhaled her scent, her essence, her life force, all of it contained in that single moment of affection. "I have missed you so much," I said into her hair. This time she didn't challenge me about only being together a few hours ago. I don't know why. Maybe she sensed something of the real me had returned, the one that existed before her confession, the version of me who'd had nearly 2 decades to dwell and regret a mistake that took her away from me forever. At that moment, she sensed, perhaps, that I'd forgiven her. Forgiven her for something that wasn't her fault, something that didn't need forgiveness, just understanding and love. I now had plenty of both. Rupert broke the moment. "Hey," he said, trying to barge in between us. "Don't I get to hug?" Lucy broke from our embrace, still holding my hand. "I'm sorry?" She smiled. "Why are you hugging him?" "He's my boyfriend." Rupert replied. "He never said?" He turned to me. "You never said you were her boyfriend?" I laughed. "No, I didn't, because I'm not." "Oh," said Rupert, thoroughly confused. "I'm her fiancé." We shared a cab home. I dripped on the carpet and shivered. Lucy put the heating up full. Not that the ancient radiators would respond quickly, but I appreciated the gesture. "Why were you standing in the rain like an idiot?" she asked, smiling. "I needed to see you." "You'd see me when I get home." I shook my head. I couldn't wait. I had this, I don't know, longing. After being such an arse this morning, then not being able to call you this afternoon. "I got your voicemail," she interrupted. "It's okay. I know how busy you get on a Friday." "That's not it. I've been brooding and unfocused, and we've been so busy we don't get time to..." "Time to what?" I wondered. "Time to just be us." She nodded, drops of rain sprinkling from her hair onto the worn carpet. "I know, it's been crazy, but another 2 weeks and I'll get some time off. Maybe we could go somewhere, away." "I'd like that." "Me too." We stared at each other for a moment, and then we kissed. It felt like for the first time for me. In a way, it was the first time for a long time. Our snog this morning didn't count. It became sensual, full of pre-sex kissing. The kind that hurts and bruises lips, passion and adrenaline taking over.
Drink!
Yep. That's probably a good idea. Cheers. A little bit of hot tea to soothe the soul. Outside, somewhere distant, thunder rolled and roiled as I buried my face in her luxurious damp hair, reveling in her scents, her liquid exquisiteness, and her touch. Oh, her touch. Across time, the feelings didn't abate or lessen. They increased, broiling and burning my mind, firing need and longing into my bloodstream. We pushed our foreheads together. We didn't speak. No words were necessary. Words were superfluous. We let our bodies talk, feeling rather than saying, sensing rather than describing. Love can be silent and deafening at the same time. Later, we talked. A lot. We took some time out of our lives to reconnect, to build back up some of the connections we'd lost. The reasons were many and few. Work, sharing the same tiny space day in and day out. Her confession, the stress of having no money. The day-to-day hassle of living in London, and for Lucy, the fear of the ever-changing profile of her chosen occupation. And for me, the never-changing shape of my enforced occupation. Occupation, good lord. The latter I could do something about, to earn more money, be more fulfilled, and take some of the pressure off her. Perhaps the reason she'd never evolved beyond the theatre had been her need to have a steady and regular income. With me contributing at last, she may be able to achieve more. I'd finally forgiven her for something that required no forgiveness, and avoided sleeping with Gina. Surely now we'd live our lives together. We talked about weddings, the future, children, and how great life would be. We lay skin on skin, pressed together under the duvet, listening to the rain hammer on the single glazed window behind our bed. We kissed ourselves to sleep. Warm, secure, and deeply in love once again. We only needed to talk and kiss and love each other. I awoke expecting Lucy to be pressed up against me, but discovered Nurse Peyton holding my wrist instead, checking my pulse, I assumed. The shock of not being next to my beloved took a moment to register. Then another realization seared into my brain. I had no memories of the time after we snuggled yet. They would take time to drip, though. I knew that now. But what alarmed me, no, alarmed isn't severe enough, scared the living shit out of me, would be a better description, was what I saw when I looked down. The blimp had returned, bigger and wobblier than ever. I struggled to sit up as I realized with shame and humiliation that I must be pushing the scales towards 20 stone. And that's chapter 20. That is very interesting. It's almost like he's gone full circle, but maybe a bit deeper. What switch got turned off? I don't know. I'm going to be very puzzled about this now until Thursday, because it's almost like, well, no, see, oh, my head hurts. He fixed the whole issue with not forgiving her. And you would think that that would like set them sail for a happy future. But something must have gone really, really wrong, because if you remember, 1 stone is 14 pounds. 20 times 14 is 280 pounds. And I'm guessing it's not all muscle. What book we reading after this? I don't have an image for you yet, and I haven't actually purchased it, but the book we're planning to read is called The Fall. So more information will be coming about that a little later. I'm just waiting for some for an email back from the authors that wrote it. But not to worry, we still have about, well, just less than half of this book to go. So, but gosh darn, I am so confused as to what has happened. I guess we'll find out on Thursday though, right? Or at least that's the hope. Okay. I owe some push-ups. Although, actually, I may have to delay that. I just realized the camera, I'm looking over here where the camera usually is, and it's not there because I had to rearrange some stuff. So I'll have to do the push-ups next time. So Thursday, I'll do push-ups in the beginning of stream. Yes. Because then I can get the camera, you know, where it needs to be. Yep, I think that's the plan. Okay. Let's figure out who we're going to go say hi to. Who is doing what? Thanks for the stream. I need to get to bed. Night, y'all. Good night, Kay. Sleep well. And my pleasure as always, Mitchell. My pleasure as always. Let's see. Sleep tasty? What? Is that so when they wake up, they're just delicious? Oh, that's funny. You know what? We haven't said hello to my buddy Mr. Carrington in quite a while. A friend of mine speaks English as a second language. Well, sleeping tasty is not usually the phrase that one would say, but I think it is funny. Let's go raid Mr. Carrington. It came out as sleep tasty. Sweet dreams. Yes, okay. That's funny. I like that one. I might say that tonight. Good night, dear. Sleep tasty. I'm just gonna see what she says. Okay. If you feel like copying and pasting the message, feel free to do so. Let's go say hi to my buddy Carrington. Thank you again for all of the resubs, even though you shouldn't be doing that right now. But in the meantime, we'll be back on Thursday. We'll keep reading, and we'll have a great time. And then don't forget, after the stream on Thursday, we're going to be in Stunt Mama's Discord, doing a separate book altogether. Fourth Wing, okay? So that's going to be a new thing starting Thursday nights this week. So until then, as always, please take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and have a fantastic night.